Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where I talk about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the season finale of The Old Man. Great season finale, hell of a season finale. A lot of really, really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So first and foremost, we are picking up in the aftermath of everything. Now that they know that Waters and Morgan's, Boat's team has got Emily, the conversation now is like, right, they have it set up so that Boat is going to give Hamzad Emily if he doesn't get on the plane himself. That said, if Dan isn't the one that kind of gets on it himself, because we actually get an insight into the past and everything, and Hamzad confronts them about their. I knew he was going to call out. For one, I didn't expect that conversation to end with so much honesty. Like, the fact of the matter is that he's like, I know some things, and there's some things that I believe in, and I need you to tell me, the truth, Because he's like, what I know is that you and my friend here work together to free that Russian agent, and my question is, I don't understand why. And so for her, it's like, right, there are just some things you shouldn't know. And so at first she tried to tell him what she already knew he knew. It's like, fine, I've been feeding information to your of your rivals to the Soviets. And he's like, yes, I do. I know that. It's like, okay, good. But then Eva's like, yes, but that's not the point. I want to know what you don't want me to know. Because you already knew, you're confirming something I already knew. You knew you were busted on that. You were hoping to give me you were either hoping I didn't already know, it would be enough. It's like, as long as you didn't tell him the real nugget, what matters the most. And for him, it's like, what don't I know? And Johnny tried to cover for her, but Baloo was like, no, don't. And she told him about the aura. I was like, yo! You actually did it. I'm surprised. It's like, well, that's not going to be good. And for him, it's like, why would you keep that from me? And for her, it's like, right, everything is happening in the way that it should. We're going to get everything we want. And I love that line of, you get to be everything to everyone at any time. When you need to be nasty, I can be kind. When you need to be generous, I can be ruthless. And it's like, right, we together, like, I compensate for what you can't be, when you need to be everything all at once, I can be that for you. I'm that key component in that. So she doesn't want, the fact is, someone refusing to compromise is what makes a tyrant. Because once again, and what she convinced Johnny of was, you take that, someone getting that much power and influence all at once, that has to be given gradually. You get that all at once, where he is now. Maybe she's hoping that who he is in the future, that when the time comes, when he gradually rises to that power. When you go from being small to being a giant overnight, that changes a person. And he's saying, like, tell me where the ore deposit is. He's like, trust me to handle it better than any other man. And she refused, because the sad thing is, despite everything that she's done for you, she still she believes that you, like anyone else, will be corrupted. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. And it is this interesting thing that she is the one person that's at the center of all of this, that has this information that can change the tide of so much. Even Johnny was like, yo, it's kind of crazy how, like, you have literally welcomed death in every direction because of the situation you put yourself in. And that lends itself to some really interesting conversations between Johnny and Dan and Harold later, but we'll get to that. But he's like, you will tell me where that deposit is, or he didn't really say, but it was like, things are going to get nasty if you don't. And he also told Johnny, when morning comes, don't be here. He's wanting that information from her by morning. So he contacts Harold and was like, yo, you need to get us out of here. And he was like, all right, if I do this, I need assurances that Faraz Hamzad will not come back to, because the fact is, I've given this guy money and guns, and now you're telling me he might be spiraling out of control right now because of the secrets that his wife has been keeping from him, and now that might be undoing him, and he might end up being the guy that you didn't think he would be. Because, yes, the sad thing is, so many things played out that if Hamzad had never found, if this whole situation had never came out the way it did, maybe Johnny helping, because Johnny was probably always that asterisk that probably ended up doing more harm than good. Like, if he hadn't decided to try and change the tides of this war and side with Faraz, probably none of this would have happened. Balor would have been able to keep doing what she was doing, and none of this would have ever came to be. So it seems like it kind of all rests on Johnny. His choices, his decisions, like, shaped everything, and it's like why things are in the fallout. That, like, this fallout has been happening for 30 years. It's just everyone has been keeping their heads beneath the sand, hoping that it would never come back to haunt them, and these ghosts aren't that easy to get rid of. So, but Johnny was promising to handle that, and while they're in the car having this conversation, I love it where Harold's like, why? He's like, I'm trying to understand. You promised me you were going to take care of this Faraz situation, and you didn't. Like, why? And he was like, the flight. There was information about that flight that Faraz wanted. I didn't have the answers he wanted. That's why, like, things kind of continue. So he's like, what went down on that flight? And for Dan, it's like, I don't want to open up battle scars. Like, my life is about to end. Because I love Harold's like, yeah, my career is over and everything. He's like, yeah, but my life's about to end. So I pretty much win this contest between us right now, Harold. But it's like, right, I don't want to spend all that time retracing scars and battles. I want to just, spend it now, this last sunrise that I have before Faraz gets me and ends up killing me. So it's kind of like, right, you don't get to know everything, Harold. Sometimes that's just how life is. You don't always get the answers you want. Because I also love that he had brought up the Zoe thing, because Zoe had noticed something that I think eventually she's like, right, you asked me to notice something, and I know something in her face, like some disloyalty. And Dan was like, no, he wouldn't. A guy like Faraz would not appear to any disloyalty, so you must have read her wrong. I don't think she did. I think there is dissent in that, yes, she does what Faraz wants, but she didn't agree with the end result of what he wanted, what this was all about, Maybe because she was under the impression that maybe this has something to do with the ore deposits. I mean, obviously, there is information even she's being kept in the dark about, because Harold threw out Balor's name, and in that moment, she stopped. Because his lawyer did not know that name. She probably knew some of his circumstances about his wife, but those are secrets that were so well kept. So even the end result, which we'll get to it when we get to it, I don't even know she knew all the details about it, or maybe she knew enough that she's just like, I don't get why this is worth it. So I don't know. Maybe there's something else. Because of the conversation she had with Zoe about, right, I do this because I'm like, if I don't, he'll find someone else to do it. But it's like, once again, I think it's because she doesn't agree with everything. There just feels like there's still more there. Dan kind of completely like brushes it off, but I'm like, Zoe didn't read her wrong, I think. I think that's going to be an important thing. And I love that it's like, she's like, Zoe's like, no, okay, like, we'll find another way. He's like, no, I can't. She's like, you might be willing to accept your death, but she's like, I'm not going to let you just go off and die. Like, she's like, at the very least, I don't want you to die. But it's like, yeah, there's no more plays to make for him. It's like, this is my little girl we're talking about. So he hopes that Zoe goes back to her normal life. But I even love Harold being like, so what does she know? Do I have to worry about her being a problem when this is all said and done? He's like, what, Zoe? No. It's like, well, he's like, do you want to know if she knows that you're the guy that sent the assassin after me to kill me in her kitchen? No. He's like, why not? And Dan answers that, because it's water under the bridge for me now, Harold. I'm like, yeah, I guess when it comes to the spycraft game, I guess it's like any, where it's like, hey, you can be enemies 1 minute, drinking partners the next, to some extent. Probably not quite like that, but I think the antidote can still apply. But Harold, like I said, Harold wanted answers, and I love that thing of, wait, you think I'm asking because out of my pure curiosity that I'm asking? He's like, no, your daughter's going to want answers. Your daughter had kept that identity as Angela so tight-lipped. Obviously, I didn't know. Not a lot of people knew. She kept that good. But in a matter of days of hearing, the moment her mom's story came into play, she cracked and revealed everything. So it's like, when you are gone, she is not going to stop. And I love that line of, you want to control what she remembers? He's like, fuck that. It doesn't work like that. He's like, those, the rememberers, they are the ones who decide when they are satisfied, not the remembered. I was like, oh, I love that line because it makes sense. It's like it's a part of herself that she still is a blank spot. Because Dan, he always said, like, right, I told her what she needed to know. It seems like he told her everything about himself, but never about, like, Abby. Ballore has always been this question mark, a part of who she is, a part of herself that she could never know. I mean, you add that on top of the fact that she's Angela, she's Emily, but she's part of her mom, because both of those sides, Emily is part of her dad, is Dan. Obviously, this gets complicated later on, but we'll get to it. Like I said, we'll get to it when we get to it. But also, Harold is part of who makes her Angela. And her mom is this question mark. I even love the metaphor of, like, her doing, like, this assignment as a little girl. And it's like, oh, are you done with your work? She's like, I'm trying. Because she doesn't know how to fill it out. It's like, who am I? Like, who are my heroes? Like, my name. Like, it's all, like, a blank spot. And her mom's like, get your head out of your ass. And then, like, when an older version of herself follows her mom, and it's just like, and she's like, oh, like, who are you? You know, ends up calling her Freckles, so she's like, don't call me that. And her mom says, what should I call you then? I'm like, oh, God, bringing it all full circle. I love it. It's just like, yeah, like, she's so caught between not knowing who she is, but also knowing who she is. But it's like, it's hard balancing both sides of herself. Once again, when there's this giant question mark about her mom, that she knows, you know, and it's like, right, she will do whatever it takes. Because Harold's saying, like, this won't be over. Even if you die, settle things with Faraz, she will continue asking the questions. She will not stop. So I need to give her answers when you're gone. And even Dan being like, good play, because he thinks, like, oh, you're playing. And he's like, this isn't a damn play, Dan. I need you to tell me so I can give her answers. And I love it where Dan's like, for him, he never questioned anything about Ballore, Abby. Never. Like, always saw her as this noble woman. But it's not till his conversation with Paulovich last episode where he's like, wait, she cultivated him years in advance before she even played him as a card to help her husband. And even him, he's like, Harold, we've never met anyone that good at the game. Which almost makes you go, like, it makes you think, like, maybe there's almost a little bit of a comparison you can make between Morgan and Abby in that regard. But it's like, yeah. But if she was willing to do that, he had never questioned her before as a noble woman. He's like, that's who she was. That's all I ever knew her. I never questioned that until now. Because now he wonders, was I just another card she was ready to play? Like, she needed an exit strategy, and I ended up filling that void. That ends up being that question of, like, right, like, who in this, like, she is at the centerfold of this. Potentially, you could say, like, maybe the argument has been, and I said that, like, maybe this all started with Johnny from the very beginning, since she planned this well in advance. Maybe it all started with Ballore. Maybe she ended up being the puppet master behind all this. And that's the ironic thing, that she's not here for all this. You know, that it is on everyone else. It's like kind of interesting, just like Harold made that point about the rememberers versus those who are remembered. It's like kind of like that. It's like exactly like that with Abby. Like there are answers that he will never get from her. He can't get from her now because he had never questioned them at the time. But now that he has those questions, he can't get them answered. So all the while this is going down, there's a whole situation with Mike, Waters, and Julian. They've got Angela, Emily, and they're trying to decide, like, you know, there's a conversation back and forth between Julian and Waters about, like, oh, like, their military history and stuff. And it's like, oh, and later on Waters, like, I've never heard anyone from, like, JSOC like you. And he's like, I feel like I know the names and I've never known yours. And he's like, well, we didn't work much, but when we did, it was for one person. He was like, you're Morgan Bolt's, like, personal covert op. And I love the line from Julian being like, wasn't the entire CIA Morgan Bolt's covert operation at one point in time? I was like, ooh, I love that. It's like, once again, showing that this man is at the top. He knows where the bodies are buried. He knows the strategies. He sees the game in a way no one else can. Once again, the way we learn about Ballore, it makes me think she's kind of the more parallel to him than anyone else. Which almost makes you go, like, then it almost seems befitting that it would be. Because I was like, right, Julian asked the question last episode about who was going to be the one to take over for him, because it's like, is Morgan okay? Like, I kept making excuses saying he was fine, but if I had to assure myself that much, maybe things aren't as kosher as I think they are. So, now the question is, I would posit it like, well, who's going to take over? Would it be Harold? Would it be Dan? I didn't see either one of them really doing it, but now I'm like, because of the parallels between Ballor and him, part of him goes, could it be Angela? She's just at the very center of all of this. I mean, once again, I'm just jumping ahead. I guess we could say she was always at the center of this. Who that goalpost keeps moving at where this all started. Did it start with Johnny? Did it start with Emily's? Did it start with Ballor? You know, either way, Mike has his instincts about things and be like, something's not right. He's like, there's nothing, but he's like, it's a different kind of nothing. And Julian it's like, right, there are people out there, like, at first you're wondering, like, is Mike just paranoid? It's like, nah, there are people out there, they're gonna try and, like, close us off, but we do not want to get in a vehicle with a dead driver. That's going to be an issue. So, we need to take care of the snipers first. Your boy Julian gets to work. They're waking Angela up, and even Angela's like, what's going on? And it's like, Faraz Hamzad wants some stuff, and it turns out Faraz Hamzad can normally get whatever he wants, but for Waters, it crosses a line, because even he was talking to Julian, he was like, the fact is, this girl is a cop, but she might be a cop, but she feels like she's more like us, you know? And I'm like, yeah. Interesting enough, she is, I guess, a combination of anything, everything, all at once. Culmination of just so much it's packaged in Emily/Angela. But as they're getting ready, regardless, I didn't finish it, but Johnny's point was, tell her that her mom loved her. That's honestly all I'm actually sure of now. And I'm like, once again, 30 years, never questioned anything about Ballor. Now, makes you kind of question everything. But that's all he could give Harold as, like, a definitive, like, this is what I'm certain of. Everything else kind of in free fall. But Harold found out about Waters and them, and it's like, all right, we're going to have to do something. Ballor's, Hamzad's making a play, but for him, it's like, it doesn't make any sense. Word might have gotten out about Angela being in the middle of this deal, but he's like, why is she so important? He's like, I think you know that. He's like, because he's like, I'm missing something, and you know it. And he's like, and you could tell I'm like, what are you still hiding after all of this, Dan? Because he's like, what you're doing right now is putting her more in danger. He was like, she's my kid, I get to decide everything. It's like, no, she's not just your kid. The fact of the matter is, that connection with Angela, he's like, that meeting, like when he saw her the first time when she knocked out her instructor, the whole Freckles story, right? He's like, that moment was the beginning for him, just like it was like when he watched his own son, Chip, be born. So she's just it's like, right, she isn't just your kid, she's just as much as mine. He's like, despite everything that I've been through, everything, he's like, he's like, how far are you willing to go? He's like, you're going to ask me that now after everything that's going down. I'm in this. So because the guy that's with them, Romani, it was ordered to, like, basically get them to the airfield, because it's like, yeah, this is orders from up high. Like, Hamzad's got the juice to push people to be what he needs. Because that was the thing that Harold couldn't. It's like, taking her doesn't make any sense. Regardless of anything, Angela Adams is an FBI agent. He's getting everything he wants from the U.S. This could compromise that by taking an agent. So why is this happening? So when the time comes, Johnny gets a gun and is like, oh, maybe I should drive. And he was just like laughing. And then Harold does his thing, and Johnny's like, "Oh, good job." He's like, "Fuck you! Don't patronize me." And your boy John, I love that sequence, especially like how it transitioned from like Dan outside shooting, and the cars like slamming into each other, and then like he slides back in like this sweet camera motion, just like sliding, and then you see the cars like in the back rear window. I'm like, I love how that was shot. You're like. That's, once again, I'm not the cinematography nerd, but I kind of like a lot of like the camera work they do in this show, especially with their action sequences like that. So it's like, okay, so Harold's like, just know that we are in this together, because neither one of us wants to see her hurt. After Julian had did what he did really quickly, they were getting ready to roll out, And it's like, okay, let's go. And then there was a lady standing there. I was like, oh shit. I was like, please don't, please don't, please don't. She pulled out a gun. It's not until later on, I'm like, I think I know who that is. I think that lady, I think that's Faraz's sister. Because she's kind of like one of his right-hand agents. So like, I think that was her. And we come across, it turns out both Waters and Mike are dead. We know Julian's still out there at play. They were supposed to meet up later, but Angela was taken. And then we get that reveal at the end where Dan's like, right, what he was asking you about, that we got 2 tickets for 3 people. It's like, we couldn't let you know the truth about everything. I was like, fuck you. I was like, fuck you. Oh my God. I threw it out there a couple episodes ago. All right. My theory has always been Faraz wants Emily / Angela because she's like a daughter to him. Because it's like, right, you're the daughter of my wife. So that essentially makes you my daughter. So I thought it was something like that. Wasn't completely off, but I was still, at the same time, completely off. But I theorized a couple episodes back. I was like, could it be that Dan's not the father that Faraz is? And I should have stuck with it. I was fucking right. Faraz is her dad. Of course. Once again, this has never been about some deposit. It's been about his daughter. And that's what I was bringing up earlier. This thing is complicated. All the father figures in this, Morgan to being the father to Dan and Harold. And then you add in the fact is that Angela's pretty much his granddaughter. But then you find out also the fact is that Faraz is her actual biological father. So now it's going to be filling in some voids of, it's not just your mom you didn't know. Your mom was a big question mark because she didn't want you to find out the truth, I guess, about your dad. And once again, this kind of goes back to the whole, well, what should I call you then? Because she's known by so many names. Was it Peruana? Like, I'm sure I'm butchering that, but that's her actual name. And that scene of him waking up, it parallels the beginning where she had talked about her father, like the reaches that, like, nothing would ever, no distance between them could ever, like, you know, make him afraid or whatever. And now we have him, like, Faraz, who, because I think I saw already who it's cast as present day Faraz, but I think I glimpsed at it, but I didn't really pay too much attention. It's not until I saw this, I was like, hey! Just saw that actor in The Cleaning Lady, but also, once again, the thing I best know him for is Farouk, the Shadow King in Legion. I was like, wow. Because he's also got a very distinct voice. And like, and I'm like, oh, that dude's a really good actor. I was like, I didn't know you were playing. It's like, yo, that's dope that he's playing older Faraz. But that conversation about, right, everything that she was going to be, he was worried about, like, right, like, how much of you was left, how much was removed from you, how much would you change? Because he's like, I wanted to make this world a place that you could look out and see everything as your own, you know? So that's what this has been about, 30 years about getting his daughter back. This, you know, and, you know, now it's understandable. When we see what these two fathers, Dan and Harold, are willing to do for their daughter, how do you expect any less from Faraz? You know, so it's like, now things are getting super complicated. These 3 people tied together like this. Because even Johnny admitted that back then, it would have been so simple. It would have been the simple and easiest thing to do is to kill Faraz then and there, but he didn't because he couldn't bring himself to kill Faraz in front of his daughter. And so now it's this situation of that choice. Once again, the show is built upon choices and consequences and fallout, and it's so good. But now Faraz has his daughter back, but that's also what he was kind of scared of, like, you know, that seeing her again in this lifetime, but also like how different would she be? Would she even be the same little girl anymore after everything that she was? The promise of who she could have been taken away and removed, and it's like, what's left? Is there anything of you that's left in there after all these years? So at the very end, we have Harold and Dan together at the end. It's like, right, once again, we're in this until it's over. So I'm assuming they're going to go visit Morgan because this isn't what he wanted planned out either. Because I don't think Morgan knew. Like, this is a secret that Dan had. It's a secret that he was going to take to his grave. Probably it's the one that Abby took to her grave, potentially. So this family of Harold, Boat, and Dan might have to come together. I doubt we've seen the last of Zoe either. He's hopeful that she'll go back to a normal life, but she'll probably reach out because he probably will realize what she saw in that lawyer might be a key to getting Emily back. And it's like, right, she might need to be a player in this game the way she views things, like her special ability of, being able to see that in people. So, hell of a way to end the season. The Old Man was renewed for season 2, I want to say a couple weeks back. I am so excited to see what season 2 happens. This season was stellar. The show was stellar. So many, once again, once you get into that spy stuff, I love the twists and turns, and I'm just excited to see what reveals, and because these were quite the revelations that we got over the course of this season. I'm assuming we're going to get some more stuff with like a young Dan and Abby and raising Emily, maybe. Obviously catching up probably more with like Faraz in like the 30 years and what he's been up to and all that he's done. Once again, that lawyer, she's going to be like, she's a big question mark too, because I do believe Zoe was right about reading her, how that might come into play, what Harold and Dan do about their old man and his role in all this and what's going to happen. What about Julian? What is he going to do? Because he's still in the middle of all this. So all 4 of them might be working together when it comes to this whole Angela Faraz situation. We'll ultimately have to wait to see where all of this ends up taking us going forward into the next season. I'm so excited. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.